Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone. Welcome for another important training session. It's all about NEBOSH Award in Health and Safety at Work, an important safety qualification, especially for the newcomers who truly want to join the safety profession as the best international safety professional, in future. So that would be the best starting point for all of you. And it's not like only for the safety professionals, even wherever you're working, like in production, in project management, or in warehouse, or even in IT, or I would say even in HR. So know how to learn about health and safety at work. So, and this qualification, of course, will give you better confidence to manage health and safety issues relevant to your department. So as I always mention, safety is not only for the safety professionals. Safety belongs to everyone. It starts from you. It starts from me. To everyone, from janitor to general manager or janitor to the president of the company, everyone is responsible for safety. So the continual learning process of everybody should never be stopped. Because whatever you are performing, any activity in the world, or any process in the world, of course, you have three stages like before, during, and after. So you truly need to learn, like if you're a welder, let's take an example. Before starting welding, what safety measures you must have to take care, or what important precautions you need to implement. And during the welding process, how are you going to make sure your safety and the safety of your surrounding colleagues and the rest of the things even. And on the other side, right after the welding process, what exactly you have to do. So for any process in the world, you need to learn three different stages, like before, during, and after. What are the safety requirements? What are the safety requirements before starting this particular process? And during when I'll be performing this process, what safety precautions I have to follow, what kind of safety rules and regulations I need to follow as per the safety procedure of that particular process or even activity. Same way, once the job is done, how I need to clear that site and what are the safety requirements I need to fulfill as per the client requirements or as per my set of procedures, which my safety department or our management have implemented already within our own organization. Okay, so let's start. Inshallah, I hope this qualification will be giving you a lot of benefit, inshallah. And actually, this qualification have two important units, like workplace safety foundation is there, and these foundations have 10 different elements. Like element 1 is all about foundations of health and safety. In element 2, we're going to discuss about responsibility for health and safety. Number 3 is all about risk assessment and control, and number 4 is work equipment. Element 5 is all about transport safety, and element 6 is working with electricity. And element 7 is all about fire safety, and element 8, manual handling and repetitive activities, and also number 9, hazardous substances, and number 10 is all about the working environment. That is all about unit number 1. Now, the second unit is all about, I would say, the risk assessment or a kind of a project you need to complete, especially at your site. If you don't have any site or you're not working yet, of course, you can go for another site, but you need to give a clear reference in your project, risk assessment project. So let's start with element number 1. But remember, in unit 2 will be a practical assessment, and you have to carry out at your own place, workplace. And of course, this practical assessment will also be assessed and by the accredited course provider or even externally moderated by NEBOSH professionals or officials. Now, this element number 1, the foundations of health and safety. Before we discuss NEBOSH theories, what is coming in your mind? Just stop, think, and analyzing some of the information, whatever is circulated in your mind. So what are the foundations of health and safety? Why do we need health and safety? Why everyone is talking about, oh, safety first. We have to follow safety, otherwise, we can't survive. Our business will be out from the market. And still, as per NEBOSH theories, of course, we also have to learn with full of clarity what are the foundations as per NEBOSH of element one. So take your time, and you can reply in the comment box if you have something, whatever is coming in your mind. What do you think? Why? What are the foundations of health and safety? So just mention in the comment box. So this is how we can interact at some level. Now, the learning outcome of this particular element number one, we have to learn about the scope and nature of workplace health and safety, and we need to identify the reasons for practicing good standards of health and safety. Because without reason, we don't do anything, right? Outline the role of workplace health and safety in fire law, the role of enforcement agencies, possible enforcement actions, and identify the key internal and external sources of health and safety information. So these are some of the learning outcomes of element number one. Now, the scope and nature of workplace health and safety. Health, safety, and welfare. This triangle is a life-saving triangle. Any brand, any company, whoever is having effective or productive health and safety and welfare system well implemented for their employees, for the visitors, for their contractors, or all other stakeholders, their goodwill graph surely will be going up and up, and they'll be getting a lot of business. Let's take an example of Saudi Aramco. They have plenty of customers. Like Saudi Aramco is our customers. Same like Saudi Aramco also have a lot of customers globally, right? And that's how they're selling petrol or gas and all these things. And they will never be able to sell until they ensure, because without ensuring health and safety best practices within their premises. That is why you'll be, the customer driven concept, you'll be finding a lot. Mostly the customers are stressing us, okay, please make sure the safety system is there, make sure the health and welfare system is well implemented, make sure the corporate social responsibility system is also being taken seriously, and also the environmental management system. So if it's a food company, they're going to discuss about the food safety systems as well. Why all these things? Because no customer wants to buy from a contractor or from a manufacturer or even from a distributor who damn care about safety requirements or killing their people at their site and selling the products to their customers, which is not acceptable. Because safety is a legal requirement as well. So they don't want to face any legal obligations also. So let's try to understand as per WHO, what is health? A state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So that means it's a complete physical. So that means you need to be physically healthy. Mentally, you have to be healthy. And the social well-being of your employees must also be well ensured. It's not like or merely the absence of disease or infirmity. It's not like only the removal of diseases. You have to make sure your employees are physically, mentally, and socially. They're excellent, strong enough, and then you can say you are doing something productive for health, safety, and welfare. Now, this activity you can complete, think about the short-term and long-term health effects of not being a balanced diet. Think about if you don't eat balanced diet, what could happen? Think about your lifestyle, your eating habits, and what could be the consequences, and might be you are facing right now even if your eating habits are not good. Now, the possible effects of stress on individual health. What could be the possible stress on individual health? You can think about. I mean, this stress is coming from, whatever the source of stress is there, but how terribly it can affect to individual's health or your employee's health. Now, can you now begin to see the wider meaning of the term health? No, you need to see it in a bigger perspective. It's not like always HSC, 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 but what is aimed at within HSC, that's the key point where we have to be serious enough, right? Now, health and safety refers to all aspects of maintaining a healthy and safe workplace. So you need to make sure you have a safer workplace, and where your employees, your all stakeholders, interested parties are well prevented from any kind of harm. And what is safety? No doubt is the results of all persons taking positive actions to identify accident causes and implement suitable preventive measures. So that means it's a combination of, it's a teamwork. It's not like only the safety department have to make sure everything is okay. Every individual, that is why, I always try to implement one slogan whenever I sign a management consulting project. We try to implement one important slogan, that is, please try to be the safety manager of your own area. Don't expect that somebody should come every time and tell you where is your helmet, why the housekeeping is not there, why you're not following work permit rules, why that particular document is not filled, why that area is unsafe, why the guard is missing, or so why the safety shoes are not there. So all these things, if you want to avoid it, nobody should come and put you under some stress. So better accept your ownership and be the safety manager of your own area. That is why safety belongs to everyone. It's everyone's business. So make sure you fulfill and you accept that responsibility positively. Don't always blame, oh, it's just a formality just to keep happy to the customers. But the company is just doing some acting, and whenever there is an audit, things we have to crack, and later on, nobody cares what is safety is all about. But trust me, these kind of actions will definitely break your trust with your customers, with some legal regulatory authorities, and they will never trust you back quite easily. So remember, trust once broken, broken forever. So that's why the welfare, the availability of facilities, you need to make sure all facilities, basic facilities are well present, and required for reasonably comfortable, healthy, and secure living is there for your all employees. Now, accident, dangerous occurrence, and near miss and work-related ill health. What is accident? Of course, it's an unplanned occurrence. Nobody likes accident, by the way. Nobody wants accidents, right? That is why the definition of accident is an unplanned occurrence which results in some loss, often an injury. Now, what is dangerous occurrence? A readily identifiable event. So, no doubt it's a dangerous occurrence as defined under national laws and regulations with the potential to cause injury or disease to persons at work or the public. So, as per ILO, dangerous occurrence definition is quite clear. Now, what is near miss? An incident in which no injury or damage results. But this is the greatest opportunity proactively to make sure, because these near miss, if you're going to ignore them, they will definitely lead to some incidents or accidents. So what is the best ways? You have to take them serious and take some corrective preventive action. So this near miss event should never be repeated again. Now, how are you going to convince your employees to report near misses? That's another, I would say, a very tough challenge. Convincing your employees to report you the near misses. And the same way, your concepts must be clear in terms of definitions about work-related ill health. So that means any physical or psychological ill health which is caused by or affected by your work. Whatsoever the reason at your workplace, of course, you need to, anything which is making you ill, maybe a noise because of highly noisy area. No, the noise level is above than 85 decibel and it's making you deaf. So it's a work-related ill health caused by and affected by your work. Maybe the earplug not provided, maybe the equipment is giving more sound, the maintenance is not done, whatever the reasons are there, but your health is being affected. Imagine if toxic fumes are there and nobody is giving you the right set of SCABA or SABA or respirator. So definitely it will cause a lot of, let's take an example of asbestos containing materials. If asbestos are going into your lungs, no doubt, short term, you'll not feel so many symptoms, but long term, permanent health effects, and maybe the lung cancer as well. Same with the silica sand and so many other elements, including H2S as well. So that is why you need to complete an activity. Can you remember the definition for each of the following and provide some examples? Please do this exercise, and I hope you will give some better answer and have some examples: health, safety, welfare, accident, dangerous accident, near miss, and work related. Even though already given the presentation, but you have to now explain and give some examples as well. Now, what are the reasons for managing health and safety? Of course, there are moral reasons like moral, ethical, humanitarian, trying to do the right thing. It's not like always money making by killing people or damaging environment or affecting, the nearby communities. Yes, we can make money as a businessman, but not by killing our employees or not by, damaging the nearby community or even to the environment. So that is why it's a moral, legal, humanitarian, ethical responsibility to do things right on track as per the legal standards even. So what ILO is estimating that as many as 2.3 million people die each year. So it's a huge number. On the other side, what our Quran said, our Islam said, saving one life, saving the whole humanity, and killing one person, killing the whole humanity. And look at the number. ILO estimates that as many as 2.3 million people die each year as a result of work-related accidents and diseases. That means we are making money, but by killing people, which is not acceptable anymore, to be very honest. Now we have social media, we have a lot of NGOs working, we have a lot of regulatory and legal bodies who are watching us. And if you do something silly or you damn care about, even insurance companies, I would say, if you'll be violating safety systems, so they will definitely penalize, in the court. And and that is why a lot of businesses, they're facing plenty of fines, because of damaging environment or killing their people. Let me give you an example. One of the incident in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, the tower crane, one Mecca incident. And where is Bin Laden? Sorry for mentioning the name, but of course, terrible consequences are still being faced by Bin Laden management. So yes, there are some legal reasons as well. So we have moral reasons and now legal reasons, because laws protect workers and the public from workplace dangers. Businesses wish to avoid prosecutions since they could be fined, would receive bad publicity, and also individuals could go to prison. So not only moral, even the legal reasons are there. Otherwise, the financial reasons. So this is how we can convince our top management as a safety professional. We can convince them, please don't stop safety budget, especially for training, especially for, whatever important things we require to ensure effective implementation of safety system. And convince them it's not like the operational expense. It's a business continuity investment. It's a business continuity requirement, you are fulfilling. Otherwise, tell them, if you believe safety is expensive, then go and try an accident. And this is how some business community people, they are destroying their businesses by ignoring safety rules and regulations, especially the legal and even the financial reasons they ignore simply. What they believe is, we'll see. Because for the last 20 years, nothing has happened. But remember, guys, no guarantee of next 20 years. You can't be lucky forever. Okay? What you truly have to remember, you can't be lucky forever. Don't think for the last 10 years, no accident happened, no incident happened. And even though you don't have any effective safety system even implemented, but you can't be lucky forever. So that is why you truly need to create some systematic, better way to perform any sort of activity or processes within your business to produce either services or products as per the nature of your business. Now, so spending money on health and safety before accidents occur will result in bigger savings later on. So if you are proactive and you are avoiding from incidents or accidents, imagine you have zero accident club for the last 10 years, no accident at all, because you have a very responsible team. It's a strong teamwork. You take care of your people by implementing health and safety and welfare system as per international standards. You have open budget for safety, quality, and credibility. So what would happen? A time will come, you don't need to go for bidding. Even customer will come and approach and gonna say, okay, we want to award you some projects and contracts. Please work for us, produce products and services for us. Now, some cost of accident and ill health will be felt straight away. Others will be felt later on, hidden costs. So this is, you can see one picture is more louder than words. Now, what sort of financial costs would a company incur as a result of having poor health and safety standards? Like direct or indirect costs, we will discuss, but still it's an activity for you guys. So start thinking how a poor health and safety standards or system can create some financial cost, which definitely the company have to bear. But anyhow, take some examples. An industrial accident occurred resulting in a large explosion, like 45 workers injured. Extensive damage was was there, and to process plant and equipment, cost of the incident estimated to be over 900 million British pounds, or additional unquantifiable cost also significant. This is just an example. So what financial cost? Accident investigation cost, sick pay, lost time, damage and repairs, fines and legal costs, increased insurance premiums and compensation to victims or the affected persons. So these are some of the examples of financial costs, like accident investigation costs, sick pay, lost time, damage and repair, fines and legal costs, increased insurance premiums and compensation to victims. So why we can't follow the win-win? Why we can't create win-win situation? Because by ignoring safety and welcoming any sort of terrible incident, and remember, goodwill gone is all over. So we as a safety professionals truly have to, build a strong convincing power to tackle to our top management professionals. So accordingly, they will start listening and they'll not stop your activities or the system you want to implement as per international standards or as per your customer requirements. What are the non-financial costs? Right? Like reputation with customers, reputation with neighbors, and poor staff morale. So these are some of the financial costs. You need to bear with that. Bear in your mind, accident investigation costs is a financial cost, sick pay, lost time, damage and repairs, fines and legal costs, increased insurance payments. It's all kind of money is being wasted because of this incident now. So what is non-financial cost? Of course, reputation with customers and reputation with neighbors, poor staff morale. All these things will definitely be affecting to our business through intangible costs, I would say, like non-financial costs. Take an example, a worker has tripped over some boxes in a corridor because the light in the area was not working correctly. So issue was with the poor lighting. Now the worker suffered a broken arm and was off work for 4 weeks. Now the same worker, imagine if the worker is so much important and he is now off for 4 weeks, how many costs will be incurred, direct and indirect, financial, on even non-financial. Now the organization knew about the problem with the light, but had left it because they had decided that it will, it was too expensive to call out an electrician who had quoted 150 British pound to complete the repair. The organization was prosecuted in court by enforcing agency and was convicted. So If you believe safety is expensive, then go and try an accident and see the result, see the consequences. That is why it is very much important to be, lead by example, be proactive, have some positive leadership, and implement safety system in its true spirit. Now, some of the examples of cost like accident, with this example, the accident what occurred, what is highlighted in the previous slide is all about accident investigation caused by consultant will be 500 or lost time and cost of agency workers to cover 1184 pounds, British pounds, or continued pay for the worker involved 1600, repair cost to light after accident 150, production loss cost. Okay, so imagine increase insurance premium now, fine for accident 3000 and legal cost 1000 British pounds and total 9,134. So you could have saved that money. Let me give you an example. Only in Saudi Aramco, $2.5 billion per year they are wasting because of these injuries and accidents and incidents. Imagine if Saudi Aramco would have saved that much money, they can launch a plenty of other projects, right? And this is how they can drive their economy much, much better than before. Now, what is the health, safety, and workplace fire law and guidance? Any country that has adopted the International Labour Organization like convention, C. Whenever you see the C, the alphabet C, that means convention. So ILO convention C155, Occupational Safety and Health Convention, like 1981, must have a system promoting health and safety, including relevant laws. So International Labour Organization, almost all the member states, all the countries are a member of ILO. So that means there are obligations they have to bear, they have to follow all the conventions, whatever agreed and developed and well implemented globally by ILO. And the convention C155 is all about occupational safety and health convention like 1981, must have a system promoting health, safety, including relevant laws. Now, reasonably practicable. This means the cost must be sensible in promotion to the safety gain reasonably, and it must be physically possible, practicable. It's not like, you as a safety professional suggesting horrible things and a lot of investment required just to ensure better safety of your employees or the assets of the company or the environment or to the business. But it doesn't mean that you have to suggest every time the most expensive thing. Find out the best possible ways, because at the end, the ultimate goal is there shouldn't be any kind of hazard or risk which can destroy or can damage to the business or the people or the environment, okay, or the assets of the company. So it must be reasonably practicable. Now, health safety workplace, fire enforcing agencies and inspectors, typically labor inspectors or health and safety inspectors, can enter any premises. They are fully authorized, unannounced. They don't need to announce that particular audit, but they can come for this inspection even unannounced. They will not tell to anyone that they are coming actually, and that's we called undeclared or unannounced audit. And what they truly have to do is they have to inspect workplaces to check that employers are following rules and laid down by law and give advice. And also they will take some samples and look at the records and interview any persons, investigate accidents and complaints. Of course, they will try their level best to report accordingly later on. Now, what enforcement actions can be there? The possible enforcement actions by labor inspectors or health and safety inspectors could include what? They can issue some notice or improvement of prohibition. So go back to your company, check how many legal notices you already received because of violating safety or health or environment or CSR requirements. And what about the prosecution? How many legal cases against your company already, you're facing in the court? So go back and check with your finance department, check with your legal advisor, check with your accounts department, or go to the general manager or even the managing director and ask them. Don't hide any legal issues or any legal warning letter coming from the, any ministry, maybe environmental ministry, maybe the labor ministry, maybe some other, So they should not hide any legal notice from you. Otherwise, how come you can take some preventive measures? So this warning letter will never be repeated and you'll never receive it again, because as a health and safety professional, you have to take care of plenty of things. Now, why is health and safety important? Now you need to start thinking, and I'm sure you will give the right answer quite easily now. Why is health and safety important? Even though the Unit 1 exam is all about MCQs, that means more easy to pass, but still no harm to think. It's a kind of a brainstorming as well. So start thinking why health and safety is important. Now, the sources of health and safety information, yes, you can find written and printed like internal HSE policy, posters, accident data reports, risk assessment. For external, you can find legal and other guidance from bodies such as enforcing agency or even safety data sheets, manufacturing informations. Verbal, yes, verbal instructions from the supervisors, managers, verbal instruction for health and safety inspectors. And also observational, like inspection and audit reports and results from external audits and inspections. So quite easily, you can find all these things. These are the sources of HSE information. You are a newly, like imagine you just joined a company as a health and safety officer. So find out and read all these documents and get all this information and see where the company is standing. Have a gap analysis. Whenever I always suggest, whenever you join as a safety profession to any business or any company, first of all, go and have a gap analysis. But gap analysis, don't try to suggest and dominate from the start. First of all, just do your effective gap analysis and find out where the company is standing in terms of compliance, in terms of implementing health and safety requirements, and how they are going for bidding, what kind of documentation already they have, what is the behavior and the culture of the company, and start reading, start analyzing, understanding all gaps, and then surely you will have a better HSE plan in your hands later on. Now, common safety signs, of course, you all are familiar, mashallah. So see wherever you want to put that no entry for any irrelevant person, put this sign for first aid, for earplug or ear muff, or you need, ear plugs or ear muff for that particular area, fire extinguisher sign or danger man at work. So we can put and use different signs. So that was all about element number 1. What is the summary? We already discussed about the scope and nature of workplace health and safety. We identified all the possible reasons why we need health and safety, especially through good standards to implement. And what is the role of workplace health and safety fire law, or the role of enforcement agencies, and even what kind of actions they can take if we don't follow safety rules and regulations. Now, identify the key internal, external sources of health and safety information. That's also we discussed. So that was all about element number 1. So I hope it will be giving you a lot of benefit. You might have understood. If there is still any confusion, please, while you'll be watching this video, you can comment in the comment box. So I will start replying accordingly, inshallah. Okay, guys, so let's start. Element 2 is all about responsibility. And you remember, I always mention you have plenty of responsibilities, but no authorities or no required resources. Of course, you will never be accountable. So if we want to make you accountable, we need to provide you very clear set of responsibilities and your limited or unlimited authorities, of course, and accordingly the appropriate resources as well, like you need some trainings or some kind of budget, or so if we provide responsibilities along with the required resources or kind of authorities, yes, we can make you accountable. No, you can't give any excuse why things are not happening, why violations are there, why unsafe acts are there, why people behavior is not getting changed, why the company culture is not getting improved. So of course we will start asking, because you are accountable if you have all this important triangle with you, like responsibilities, authorities, and required resources. But anyhow, as per NEBOSH, element number 2, let's understand the responsibility for health and safety. Now, there are again learning outcomes. Make sure after the completion of this element 2, you must be capable to understand the safety roles and responsibilities of all the relevant parties. You must be capable to outline systems to effectively manage health and safety, and also how accidents are caused at the role and function of the accident recording and investigation, and what are the best methods which you need to be identifying for better HSE performance. So before we move on, again, this is an activity. So start, have a brainstorming and discuss your own responsibilities for health and safety. You can start listing up what are my responsibilities as a health and safety, and do they just involve you as an individual, or you are also responsible for managing workers? Like if you have a department head, are you going to manage only your safety, or you will make sure that all your subordinates or your department employees, they're also following safety rules and regulations and going safely every day back to home, every day safely? Now, roles and responsibilities of people within an organization. Employers have a responsibility. So it's a clear-cut responsibility of the employer for health, safety, and welfare of workers, and the health and safety of anyone else who is affected by their work activities, like visitors. You have like all stakeholders or all interested parties, including visitors, agency workers, contractors, or even general public. So protection of workers or public others, the health and safety risks versus money, time, or effort needed to control the risk. Of course, we have to be very much clear from top to bottom, everyone is responsible for safety. So let's talk about the directors. Health and safety should be seen an important part of business activity. That is the major responsibility of the directors. Members of the board and senior managers have a both, a collective and individual responsibility for the health, safety, and welfare of workers. In the UK and many other countries, senior company representatives can be prosecuted if they have been negligent. The board should also endorse formally, sign the health and safety policy as well. Now, directors should also consider if adequate resources are allocated for health and safety, the organization receives competent health and safety advice. Serious or new risks have been assessed and controlled. Consultation is undertaken with workers or their representatives. So these are the important factors that directors have to consider. That adequate resources, competence, risk assessment, and also consultation. So consultation is a two-way process, not like only informing. Consultation. So it's a two-way communication. Make sure all the stakeholders or all the employees are well familiar, and everything is well consulted with especially with their representatives. Now, after directors, of course, we need to discuss what are the responsibilities of supervisors and managers. They must make sure what workers have received necessary health and safety training. So their major responsibility is training. So if you are a manager of a department, of your department, make sure your all employees are well trained. If they're not trained, send request to HR. HR will arrange either you need safety training or some other technical training. They'll make sure the right competence level is well achieved through effective trainings. Now, risk assessments are carried out and control implements. That's also your responsibility as a manager. Emergency procedures are obeyed. Workers have issued with and use the correct PPEs. So training, risk assessment, emergency procedures, PPEs, safe working practices are followed, and adequate supervision. So these are your major responsibilities as a manager and supervisor. I repeat again, make sure everyone is well trained. So training is your responsibility. Then risk assessments, emergency procedures are obeyed and implemented and well being followed. And on the other side, the PPs, the correct PPs are available. And on the other side, safe working practices are followed. Adequate supervision is provided. The degree of supervision will depend on the level of risk, complexity of the work, and competency of the workers. Now, you, the workers, what are your major responsibilities? Make sure you have a responsibility to look after their own health and safety. So you have to be the safety manager of your own area. Your safety, your responsibility. If you need trainings, tell to your manager. If you need PPs, ask from your manager. If you have any unsafe condition or any defective tools and equipment, or you are facing any sort of documents is not available where you can record different findings, of course, you can go back and inform to your supervisor or manager. But if you kept silent, It's not acceptable. No, should cooperate all times with their employer on all issues of health and safety. So you have to be cooperative. As a worker, you have to inform. Don't hide incidents. Don't hide near misses. Don't hide any even minor injuries. Don't hide even any first aid cases. Just make sure you report to the concerned department so they can take some corrective preventive actions. Now, should use tools and other equipment correctly. So make sure whatever resources are provided by the company, you are using them correctly, especially the equipment, and not interfere with or misuse equipment provided for health and safety, and may have other specific responsibility like carry out health safety checks. Now you have to complete this activity. Now come back to your own responsibilities for health and safety and think about the points you discussed earlier. Has this section clarified them for you? So make sure from the directors, then managers, supervisors, and the workers, what are their major responsibilities. So now you must be capable at least to understand your responsibilities, whatever within the organization at whatever level of functions you are performing your job. Now, what is consultation? As I told you, it's a dialogue, it's a two-way communication between workers and the management, allowing workers to raise concerns and offer opinions and influence decisions. So if you don't consult, or imagine if you are taking every decision by yourself and there is no consultation, the workers will never own that particular. So if they don't accept the ownership, they will start ignoring whatever you are trying to implement. So make sure in larger organizations, your workers must be consulted through health and safety representatives, and they can be appointed by the trade unions even, and can be informal or formal, possibly through a health and safety committee as well. So make sure the committee, the safety committee, how we have to structure the safety committee, that's another debate, but make sure the safety committee is there. Now, what are the key important role of this safety, health and safety committee? A committee may examine status, or like they have to, check some of the accident records and in health and review accident investigations. They have to discuss different inspections, review risk assessments. Maybe they can identify some training needs. So training need assessment, just to improve the competence level of the employees, they can identify their needs, consider changes in the workplace. So any possible change which can be helpful for the employees' health and safety and welfare, of course, they can go for this one. But this committee must be fully active and have decision-making power. It's not like just meeting, and at the end, even the decisions are there, but no implementation. So make sure if you're analyzing all the data, then make sure you're taking some right decisions with some better corrective actions, and with time bound, with responsible persons, and making sure it's done. Now, benefits of consulting workers. There are a lot of benefits that you consult with the workers. First of all, it's easier to identify risk and formulate joint solutions to problems, like shows workers or the organization takes their health, safety, and well-being seriously, and may improve morale. Now, should lead to greater awareness of the health and safety among the workers and better control of workplace risk. Businesses may also see improvements in overall quality and business efficiency. So, if you consult with the worker and you implement in a better way the health and safety or welfare system, so healthy workers, like healthy body have a healthy mind. So same way, if your employees are healthy, or and they are much safer, and their morale is excellent, and they are self-motivated, and because of your caring and sharing system, especially in health and safety and welfare. So imagine automatically the quality and the productivity, even the business efficiency will go up and up. And this is how you can improve. And this is the long-term benefit, for your business even. That's why consultation with the workers have a lot of benefits. Now, systems for managing health and safety. Yes, there must be some systems in place to implement, because it will provide you a framework to manage an organization's health and safety performance and compliance. Complex or simple, choice is yours. Help to minimize the risk of injury or illness, are effective for organization's risk profile and also can be informal and formal system to certify a third party by a third party. Remember guys, effective management system will always be beneficial if it is well implemented and being respected at every level of your organization. Now, what is health and safety policy? The policy sets out the health and safety vision. First of all, it's a statement of intent. It's a commitment. It's a promise. It's a framework. It will definitely highlight some organizational responsibilities, arrangements for managing health and safety. Like in UK law, require that this to be written if you employ more than 5 people. So there must be HSE policy, well developed, established, and should be signed off by the directors of the company and reviewed on a regular basis. Now, what should be the content of policy? An overall statement publicly declaring the director's commitment to health and safety. As I told you, it's a promise, it's a commitment. And sometime I tell to the safety managers, okay, you have signed this health and safety policy from your general manager or the managing director or the president of the company. Just go back and ask them, have you ever studied even a single time what is written inside? And trust me, mostly the answer will be no. And they're gonna say, we don't have time to read. Then why you signed it? But anyhow, make sure it's a commitment. You understand it's a commitment, it's a promise. So, and why, what is written inside? You have given a declaration that the health and safety commitment will be there. And you also have mentioned the company will prevent accidents and work-related ill health, provide adequate control of risk. You have given commitment for providing effective training and also engaging and consulting with workers on day-to-day health and safety conditions and providing advice and supervision on occupational health and also implementation of emergency procedures, maintaining safe and healthy working conditions, and also information related to health and safety will also be communicated to all the staff at every level. First aid arrangements would also be there and how accidents are preventable or going to be reported or investigated. Now, you must be capable as a safety supervisor or as a safety officer or even as a safety manager. That's another lacking point. Whenever I ask, can you write a safety policy? Can you write a policy statement of your company related to HSE? Trust me, mostly the answer was no, because they have no idea how technically or logically or legally they have to use different words and bring them together. And it's a commitment, it's a framework, it's a promise for the public, for all the stakeholders. So can you develop? Today I'm asking again, can you develop a safety policy of your organization? If not, start learning. Comment on the content and any additional element you would like to see included. Now, what is hazard identification or risk assessment and control? That no doubt we will discuss in more detail like in element 3, but technique which enables employees to look at the risk in the workplace and decide on suitable control measures. That is why the hazard identification, risk assessment and controls are pretty important. So the step number 1, as a safety professional, even as a department head, you must be capable how to identify the hazards. Even, to be very honest, from janitor to general manager, everybody should be capable to identify the hazards, even without any help. And they must be capable to conduct at least the risk assessment of their own area. Yes, you can provide advisory services, you can support them, but this must be done by the relevant department, in involvement of the relevant process owners actually. And accordingly, you can put some certain control. What is communication? The objective should be present a clear and easily understandable message. Common methods including notice boards, emails, internet, manuals, posters, leaflets, and newsletters. You need to communicate, and it can be internal, it can be external as well. So these should be backed up with more active methods such as toolbox talks, planned meetings, team briefings. Mashallah, I hope you guys are already doing all these things, but remember, when there is any question related to communication in the exam, even though MCQs will be there, so make sure you select the right answer. Now, what are the barriers to communication? Sometimes work remotely from the main site, travel a great deal and work from home, speak a different language, have a low literacy level. Sometimes I say at one project, maybe you have 22 different nationalities, different background, different education level, different, some are technical, some are non-technical, some are highly educated, some are no, not at all educated. So how are you gonna communicate? Somebody can understand Arabic, someone can understand only English, someone can understand Hindi or Urdu or some other languages. So how you will overcome all these communication barriers? So that's why at least you must be capable to identify what are the barriers of communication, which you need to remove one by one. Consider how effective the communication on health and safety in your organization. Would you, what could be done to improve it? How are you going to improve? How you can? Let me give you one example. Even though it's your activity, you have to complete it. Let me give you one example. Imagine you have 100 employees and 70% are Saudi and they can only understand Arabic. And your all policies are in English, your all documentation, all procedures, forms, everything is in English. Imagine how terrible this situation could be, because 70% of your workforce, they can understand Arabic. So what should be your best strategy? Either you will go with dual language like English and Arabic, or you'll just focus on Arabic and the rest of the team, you're going to say, okay, all 30% you have to learn Arabic, or you're going to implement the both languages, because since you have to make sure your message is well delivered and everybody understand what exactly you're talking about. Let me give you an example. You have safety policy and it's in English, but 70% of your force, they can only understand Arabic. What would be the benefit? 70% of the audience, they'll be confused. But if you have dual language, of course it will help. So this is one way around. So that's what they're asking. How are you going to improve this communication level within your organization? Now, monitoring and checking health and safety performance provide an indication of what uh, do you need to do to improve. You will need feedback on performance before risk, result, and injury and surveys, inspection, and audits. That's why monitoring and checking is important. Performance after include have occurred, like e.g. from accident book, near miss reports. So this data you surely have to kept properly, and that would be helping to understand your safety performance. Now, how accidents have caused? What are the real root causes of cause? Like identifying causes and investigating accidents. You have to be capable, in incident investigation. Now, accidents have an immediate cause, of course, but they also have one or more underlying causes which relate to unsafe condition and unsafe acts. The root cause of the accident is often the management failure or the leadership failure, from which all other failures stem. Now, the purpose of accident investigation is to discover. Why we do accident investigation? To discover what we have to discover: the immediate causes, the underlying, and the root causes, in order to take some action to prevent a reoccurrence. Because one-time incident, of course, is still a source of it's an opportunity to improve further. But the same incident happening over and over, of course, wouldn't be acceptable, and that's how the terrible consequences could be there. And if the accident graph going up and up, a time will come nobody would like to work. No customers would love to award you any contract, right? Now, guys, this will give you an idea. Workers' fractions risk after tipping over an electrical cable. Why? Just see the why. Worker fractures a risk after tripping over an electric wire. Why? The cable trailed across the floor. Why? And he tripped over the cable. Why? And he didn't see the cable. Why? It was left there by a contractor. Why? It lay across his path. Why? It was dark where he walked. Why? No control of contractor system in place. Why? And lack of site supervision. Why? 2 out of these lights were not working and no one asked for the bulbs to be replaced. Why? No system existed for routinely checking the lights, and management didn't know they need a policy for this. Supervisors didn't know he was responsible for checking this. It was an en route to where he was going. So just with one word, you can interrogate all the possible immediate root causes, even the underlying root causes or even the root causes. Otherwise, this is how the domino effect can help: root cause, underlying causes, immediate causes, and loss. Consider an accident at workplace you have been involved or have witnessed. What do you think were the immediate underlying root causes? Please go for this activity because practice makes someone perfect. Okay, so you have to be a passionate learner. Don't be bothered about it. Just take a ball pen and diary or writing pad and start listening up. So this is how practice will make you perfect, inshallah. If you have not experienced an accident, you could consider a near miss, something that happened to you or you saw happen that could have led to injury. Just think about your life, think about your experience or wherever you're working, and find out if any accident happened at your work, and start writing immediate underlying root causes. This is your activity. Now, accidents and near miss recording and reporting. How we have to, the near miss recording and reporting must be there, including accident. See, accident with no damage, near miss accident maybe 600, damage accident 30, and minor injuries, first aid injuries 10, or serious or disabling injury 1. So this is accident ratio triangle. You can follow accordingly. Now, improving health and safety performance. Yes, accident investigation, take charge of the immediate situation, gather evidence. It's a game of evidences. I mean, if you're talking something without evidence, it would be harder for you to convince the management for some actions. Assembly and analysis of the information, identify risk control measures, and implementation of findings. Now, what are the examples of poor health and safety performance? He can ask maybe through MCQs, the question, in the exam, the poor health and safety performance, following are the examples, or which one is the example or the good example of poor health and safety performance. So remember, rest of the options might be incorrect, and one option he'll pick from here and give you there. So see how you have to remember and reply back. The high accident rates is an indicator that your health and safety performance is poor. High absenteeism, unsafe behaviors, complaints from staff or other stakeholders, negative reports from health and safety advisors, and poor housekeeping. So these are some of the examples of health and safety performance, poor health and safety performance. Now, what are the barriers to good health and safety performance? Lack of resources. As I told you, mostly companies that think it's an expense. Safety budget is an expense. They don't need to allocate. They just need to reduce even that budget. No need to allocate, and that is how the lack of resources are there. So poor management commitment is another barrier, allowing unsafe behavior to become the custom and practice. Poor training and worker skill, lack of poor risk assessment and control, and ineffective communication is another barrier of good health and safety performance. So if we remove these barriers or we reduce them, of course, our system performance will be higher. Now, how we can improve this performance, health and safety performance? Yes, we just need to make sure we have proper resources. We need to make sure the top management commitment is there. The leadership is leading by example. It's not like the general manager is visiting at the site and the project manager is visiting the site, but no PPs, no safety shoes sometime. Then what would be the trickle down effect, the negative effect in the brains of other employees? So things that commonly need a rest, like competence and training, You have to focus on these 2 points and promoting and enforcing safe behavior, implementation of actions from risk assessments, learning from past accidents or incidents, communication and consultation, and the regular monitoring of standards. So if he can create a question like how are we going to improve health and safety performance, which one of the points below would be helping to improve HSE performance. So remember, you understand all these positive points. So that was all about element 2. You should be able to outline the HSE roles and responsibilities, how the systems effectively can be managed HSE, or how accidents are caused, and the role and function of accident recording and investigation, identify the methods of improving health and safety performance. Now let's talk about element 3. It's all about health and safety risk assessment and control. Risk assessment and control. And in the unit 2 of this qualification, NEBOSH qualification, you have to complete a project, and that is all about risk assessment. And you can do it, you can conduct this risk assessment at your own site. Otherwise, choose any site, but make sure you are doing it practical by yourself. Don't just try to copy paste and, you know. Now, what is the learning outcome of this particular element of risk assessment and control? Now, first of all, aim and objective of risk assessment with some examples of common hazards. We need to explain what constitutes an adequate risk assessment and outline the stages of risk assessment and also the general principles of controlling health and safety risk. So let's talk about aim and objective of risk assessment. You know, risk assessment, I always say, is a very much protective activity, proactive. Proactively, you are, instead of welcoming accidents, you are taking some preventive measures, like it's a kind of prevention, you know, because prevention is better than cure, right? So risk assessment in advance will give you a very clear picture, activity wise, process wise, you know, or department wise or area wise, what can go wrong in advance, proactively. So accordingly, you need to put some, if your existing controls are not good enough, you can implement some additional controls and reduce the possibility of incidents or accidents or near miss or kind of injuries. Is it not possible to eliminate all risk, but you are required to protect people so far as reasonably practicable? It's hard to remove 100% risk, but of course you need to bring it down as far as reasonably practicable. So a lot is all about as low as reasonably practicable. Now, can you remember how we define reasonably practicable? Reasonably practicable, for a control to reasonably practicable, the cost must be sensible or proportional to the safety gain, reasonable, and it must be physically possible practicable. That means don't tell a solution which is too much expensive, and the company management, they will never agree with you and they're unable to provide the budget. Like they have the project from the customer maybe for 1 million, but the solution against different risk or hazards you are telling that required maybe 0.5 million. So nobody will be respecting your ideas, right? So make sure you create a win-win situation and make sure you are suggesting the reasonably practicable solutions. Now, ultimately, only a court can decide whether the control was reasonably practicable. Yes, the court can surely decide whether the control was reasonably practicable, and you can play within the legal limits. And at the end, the ultimate goal is creating zero accident club or zero injuries club, right? Now, what is the meaning of hazard, risk, and risk assessment? So hazard, anything that might cause harm. Just remember, anything that might cause harm. Examples like sources such as moving machineries are there, fire, noise, situations such as working at height or confined spaces, acts such as manual handling. So please complete this activity. What are the most common types of hazard that exist in your workplace? Go back and see what kind of hazards are there, and electrical, fire, you know, biological or any other hazard. Just make sure you try and understand. Which hazard do you think lead to the most accidents and both fatal and non-fatal? Find out, you know, what are the most accidents happening because of which hazard. Now, what is risk? It's a chance that somebody could be harmed by these hazards together with an indication of how serious that harm might be. So remember, severity multiplied likelihood is equal to risk. Severity multiply likelihood is equal to risk. Now, risk assessment is about identifying and taking sensible and proportionate measures to control the risk in your workplace, not about creating huge amounts of paperwork as per UK Health and Safety Executive. It's not like only the paperwork. Make sure you are identifying and taking sensible and proportionate measures to control the risk in your workplace. Now, we have different type of risk assessment like qualitative, quantitative. So what is qualitative? A subjective judgment of the level of risk based on the experience of the risk assessor and the evidence they have gathered and examined. What is quantitative? A system which uses specific values to estimate overall risk. Now, common workplace hazards, slip, slips, and fall. Just you need to remember that one. The rest all are just the physical nature of the floor surface, certain changes in level, subsidence. So any reason where people can slip, trip, and fall. Falling objects can be there. Falling can be material, can be any sort of this overhead activities are going on, or maybe the racking system of the storage areas, collision with objects. Maybe some fixed objects are there, like racking on the edge of the machines. Trapping, crushing under between objects, like boxes and pallets falling over. Trap, finger or door, car slipping, or manual handling, maybe moving, lifting, carrying, or manual loads. Contact with machinery vehicle, that would be another. Electricity. I don't want to spend more time here, but just remember these topics, and rest of the example you can just bring in your mind. Hazardous substances could be like dust, silica, gases, carbon monoxide, liquid chemicals, solvents, biological organisms. Okay, fire and explosion, maybe gas cylinders, compressed gas cylinders, or flammable liquid, dust, combustible dust, I would say. Psychosocial, work-related stress. Noise can be there, vibration. Common causes of accident. Yes, there are some common causes of fatal accidents. He can create a question here. So make sure you have some understanding. Like common causes of fatal accidents: falls from height, struck by moving, flying, or falling objects, struck by moving vehicle, or trapped by something, collapsing, overturning, or contact with moving machinery, drowning, asphyxiation. So these are some of the common causes of accidents. So make sure you have clear understanding about common causes of accidents. Now, common causes of accidents, common causes of non-fatal. So these were fatal accidents, and now we are talking about non-fatal accidents. Maybe slip, falls, struck by object, manual handling, struck against, injuries from machinery, vehicle related. So complete the activity, and just you need to find out what types of hazards most common in your workplace, fatal or non-fatal, and compare common types of hazard in your workplace with those discussed earlier. Aim and objective, or what is the aim and objective? The actions that need to be taken. A risk assessment should be based on the relative level of risk, like the harm, the severity, or the likelihood. You must be clearly capable to judge what the most likely outcome will be, like harm, severity, or likelihood. Adequate risk assessment, you must have to ask key questions like who should be responsible for the risk assessment. The employer has over responsibility. Remember that one. You can create a question: who is responsible for the risk assessment? And he gave you different options, but remember the employer has overall responsibility, and then he can delegate to department manager, or must have a clear reporting structure to show the progress and any important findings. Who should undertake the risk assessment? Someone with the competence, because right person for the right job. Make sure the risk assessor is competent all the way, because he must be capable to understand about the work and to identify the hazards, be able to assess the risk, be able to identify existing controls and any further control needed. Use of external assessor when the organization does not have competent internal resources. Yes, you can use UK Health and Safety Executive describe competence of the combination of training, skill, and experience, knowledge that a person has, or their ability to apply them to perform a task safely. So this is the definition given by UKHSE. Okay, that the competent person is the one who have proper training and a skill set, and of course the experience with the right set of knowledge, and also capable and able to apply them to perform a task safely. Now, who should be involved in the process? Those who are exposed to the risk and health and safety representative. So it's not like you as a safety officer have to complete risk assessment by sitting in your office. Go into that area and then complete with the relevant guys, Does it meet legal requirements if relevant? The purpose for a legal point of view to help determine the measures that should be taken to comply with the relevant health and safety law. Of course, we need to fulfill legal requirements as well. Now, does it identify all significant hazards? Sources of information. The assessor must find what? The workers involved in the task. Then it would be useful. Relevant legislation and appropriate guidance is there. Manuals produced by the equipment and especially material manufacturing and suppliers. Information from the trade association, insurance companies is also received, and then through this way we find out the significant hazards. Now, is it current? Like risk assessment should be reviewed on a frequent basis, especially like annually, minimum annually, to see if they are still valid and revised if necessary. An assessment should be undertaken before any work commences or when a significant change is conducted. So before you start, that's why I told you, any activity in the world or any process. So 3 stages are there: before, during, and after. So what can go wrong in every stage? Just start thinking, and this is how you can find out the risk, hazards, and then putting some better controls proactively. Otherwise, be ready to face some accidents. Now, does it identify all people who may be affected? Yes, all aspects of the work must be assessed, including routine and non-routine work, cleaning and maintenance. The assessment must identify everyone who may be at risk from the work activity, including visitors and members of the public. Issues which a risk assessment may cover, maybe mobile, offsite working, contractors, agency workers, vulnerable people like, have some disabilities, or young workers or pregnant workers. You need to identify all the people who may be affected. So it's just an example. A risk assessment for roof work undertaken in a public area such as a busy street would consider what? The workers on the roof, the members of the public who may be passing below, anyone working inside the building, visitors who may need to examine the work such as architect, building inspectors. So does this record all significant findings? In UK law, the significant findings should be written down if the organization employs 5 or more people. So for 5 or more people, you need to have the significant findings or kind of risk assessment. So management must ensure that any necessary actions identified from the assessments are taken as soon as practicable. Now, how are we gonna make this risk assessment record? The HSE advises that the record should show that a proper check of the hazards was made. Those who might be affected have been identified. So affected employees must be identified. Like who might be harmed? Like this is the hazard, okay, who might be harmed, how he might be harmed. So no, the employer deal with all the obvious significant hazards, taking into the account like the number of people who could be involved. The precautions are reasonably and maintaining or remaining risk is low. Yes, sometimes a specific risk assessment required. Example, exposure to hazardous substances, exposure to vibration, manual handling activities, the use of display screen equipment. We need specific risk assessment. Take an example, in the UK, if workers are believed to be exposed to noise level of 80 decibels or more, being a lower action level of a daily or weekly exposure to noise, an employer must assess the risk to identify the necessary precautions needed to protect workers from that noise. So if exposure is above 85 decibels, the second action level, the assessment should include former measurements of the noise in the workplace. You will learn more about noise assessment and control later on. Now, suitable and sufficient, make sure the risk assessment is suitable and sufficient, especially the adequate words are there. In deciding the amount of effort, also employer need to put in the assessing risk, and also consider what the significant hazards and precautions are in place so that the risks are small. Generally, the more significant hazard is, the more resources you should put into the assessment. You can complete this activity, apply the risk assessment matrix to each of the following scenarios: the fire exit blocked by paper files in a printing works, or you'll consider, the risk assessment matrix. A pressure washer is left outside and not maintained while it was being used by the contractor laborers. Aerosol spray cans are used for occasional touch-up repairs to small components. The work is conducted on an open bench and the workers do not wear PPEs. There are small amounts of grease on the kitchen floor. So how you will complete a risk assessment matrix? So complete this activity since you have studied what is the risk assessment, how it looks like, and I'm sure within your company you might have a risk assessment format, and go back and see any activity or any processes missed there, or how the risk assessment is done. The stages of risk assessment based on the UK's HSE 5 steps. So remember, this is an important slide, I would say, but remember in sequence. So the number one step is you have to be capable to identify the hazards. That is number one step. Identify the hazards. Then decide who might be harmed and how. Who might be harmed and how. Evaluate the risk and decide on precautions, applying control to specified hazards. Record the finding and implement them, and review the risk assessment. These are the 5 steps. So IDERR. IDERR. That means identify, decide, evaluate, record, and review. What do you need to review? The assessment. What do you need to record? Findings. What do you need to evaluate? Risk. What do you need to decide? Who might be harmed and how? And what do you need to identify? The hazards. So remember, in sequence, all these 5 steps. As per UK Health and Safety Executive, 5 steps are guided. Identify the hazards, decide who might be harmed and how, and these 5 steps you can put into the format of your risk assessment, and just for make your life easy. Evaluate the risk and decide on precautions, applying controls to specify hazards, record the finding and implement them, and review the risk assessment. What are the general principles to control? Once you have identified all the risk and hazards, so you need to remember some of the general principles for controlling these possible risk and hazards. If possible, risk should be avoided altogether. Where risk cannot be avoided, an assessment should be carried out to determine. No, if possible, risk should be avoided altogether. That should be our top priority, to avoid from risk. But if it is unavoidable, of course, we need assessment here to determine what level of controls we required or we need to introduce. Now, the needs of individual workers should be considered. So, general hierarchy of control, again, an important slide, but remember in sequence as per NEBOSH, like, elimination is the first step against any sort of hazards or risk. Substitution, engineering control, signage warnings or administration controls, protective equipment, personal protective equipment. So ESESP, ESESP. So elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administration controls, and PPs. So PPs come at the last. It's not like I provided the earplug, but the machine belt still giving a lot of sound, or the guarding is not there. The grinder is giving more sound because the guard is not there, or you have flywheels and different kind of moving parts in the machine, but they're not guarded, or maybe the maintenance not done well, but just you provided earplug, the job is done. No, it's not like that. You need to make sure you are following all 4 steps and then go for the last one. General hierarchy for control, elimination is completely remove the hazard. Substitution, hazard can't be removed, replace the hazard with less, like the water based solvent based paint, you are changing it with water based, which is less corrosive, less flammable, so you need to find a better substitution. Engineering control, for example, use of guarding the dangerous machinery parts, signage warning like isolation, segregation of hazard, like safe system work, information, instruction, training, and supervision. Personal protective equipment could be any sort of PPs. The role of monitoring and health and surveillance. Health surveillance allows management to monitor the health of individual workers to find out whether controls are effective by looking out for early signs of work related to your health, e.g. audiometry. Now, this activity you can complete, refer to risk assessment form in your course book. You can see, or otherwise contact me through WhatsApp 009665989034339. So I will share a risk assessment format and just start completing it. And I'm sure you will do it in a better way. And if you believe your English is not good or you're facing some issues, start improving it, because you already identified that your English is having some issues. So even though it's not your native language, even for me, it's not a native language, right? It's not our mother language. So what we have to do is start improving. We can't, the biggest room in the world is the room for further improvement. So start gradual improvements every day. Don't just put a lot of stress in your mind, oh, my English is not good, how I can complete and write all these words and complete my risk assessment or certain projects. If you believe you are lacking some skills, improve them and try to be skillful. So what is the summary of this element number 3 is all about? Outline the aims and objective risk assessment. We understood some common hazards and examples. Explain what constitutes an adequate risk assessment, and also stages of risk assessment and general principles of controlling health and safety risk. So we discussed about risk and their control. Now let's talk about element 4. Okay, guys. Now this element 4 is all about work equipment. To run any business, we use what? Man means people, employees. We use machinery. We use materials. We use methods like different kind of policies, procedures, SOPs, work instructions. Some administration rules and regulations. But we are going to talk about one M that's called machinery or the work equipment. So learning outcome, just we need to understand what are the safety requirements of work equipment and also the main hazards and controls. So now mostly the rest of the elements we will discussing, categorical the hazards and their controls. Like now we are going to discuss about work equipment, their main hazards and controls. Now the general requirements for work equipment. What are the general? What is work equipment? An equipment which you use in connection with your work. You're doing welding, what machine you required, you are cutting something, what type of cutter you required, you are grinding something, what type of grinder you required, you're working on electricity or, so what kind of equipment you need. You are lifting something, you're rigging something, so how are you going to do? So it can be hand tools, it can be power tools, machinery, excess equipment, can be hand tools, can be power tools. Hand tools mean knives, hammers, all you understand, and power tools, electricity, battery, power, compressed air, etc. Machinery, moving parts would be there, like man-mounted drills or conveyor belts. Access equipment, it enables workers to allow access or not normally accessible, but mostly commonly associated with working at height. Please complete the activity, what kind of equipment are there or under, these key headings. How many hand tools you have within your company? How many power tools or machinery access equipment you have? Control of work equipment, how we going to control them? Hardware measures like physical controls, guards, protective devices, control devices, emergency stop buttons, first protective equipment, and for all these things, your maintenance department is important. Your engineering department will be supporting your, the supplier, the machinery supplier or the manufacturer of that machine will be a great help for that particular equipment. Now, software measures rely on people, like methods of selecting equipment, information, instruction, and training. The right equipment, how are we going to select? In what conditions will the equipment be used? Example, if you intend to use electrical tool, in wet conditions, it is much safer to choose one which runs on batteries rather than one which runs on medium voltage. And also, what additional risks are there? It may be safer in the wet to use compressed air tools, instead of battery or instead of direct main voltage. It may be safer and wet to use compressed air tools. These, however, are likely to be noisier particular and confined spaces. What about the worker? Where appropriate, provide tools that are fit for the individual using them, like left-handed tools. And is the equipment CE marked or UL enlisted or FM approved? Even though it's a product manufacturing declaration that the product complies with the essential requirements of the European Health and Safety Environmental Protection legislation, CE mark does not anyhow guarantee that the item is safe. The equipment is used safely and properly maintained. Work equipment should use only by use in conditions and for jobs which is suitable. It should be used for its intended purpose only. It's not like I made something for cutting and you are trying to bend with that. Hazards from the use of work equipment coming apart or breaking, an item being thrown out, the machinery possibly at a high speed, material falling from the equipment, material held in equipment being unexpectedly thrown out, overheating, fire, explosion, and explosion of equipment due to pressure buildup, or explosion of substances in equipment or during its operation. So I always say machines are killers. So if you don't use them properly or safely, still 100% safety is a big question mark. But at least we can try. We can follow safety rules and regulations, whatever guided by the manufacturer or as per our safety procedures, we must follow them if we truly want to be alive actually. Because some of the equipment, they'll simply kill. Let me give you an example. You have a forklift operator, you have forklift, but if you're not trained or certified and you're trying to use, just imagine what would happen. Things to look out for: what? Are controls easy to access and easily operated? Are emergency controls fitted and working properly? Every equipment should have proper controls. Equipment being used in right environment and also equipment stable and it's not does not move when operated, and all the guards that are needed fitted and in use. So safety starts from design. Make sure whatever equipment you are buying or the machines you have, they are safely designed and all the safety features are well inbuilt. If they are not inbuilt, be ready to fabricate even after risk assessment, because you need a strong evidence to convince your management. Because local fabrication, that means again a cost. No, more things to look out for is a safe system of work in place. Make sure the workspace around the equipment is clear and unobstructed, because you need a better space to run this equipment safely. PPs you need, training you require. Make sure adequate lighting is there, and also the clear marking or the warning signs wherever essential must be there. Yes, we need maintenance, proper maintenance, and there must be a frequency of the maintenance, even though it depends on the type of equipment or maybe the conditions or how often it is used. Yes, there must be some regular inspections, and I would say any equipment before using, no harm to inspect it. Sometimes third-party inspection is also mandatory. Okay, so make sure there isn't any damage or some equipment, a competent person you need to make sure the person is competent, well trained and certified. Regular wear check should be conducted by the user. Written records of the inspection should be retained. Examples: when should a passenger lift be inspected by a competent person? Legally in UK, passengers lift are examined before being put into service, after installation, and also after every 6 months. What inspection checks could be operated through formal vehicle inspection, like alarm, safety interlocks, lift doors. Also, let me give you an example. In one of the company, I asked the forklift operator, "Can you show me your inspection record?" So he just brought the file, and I looked, randomly with different records of different dates, And to be very honest, every page, every inspection checklist, every checkbook was just tick, tick, tick. That 100% everything is okay. But when I asked, "Do you know what you are ticking?" "No, I don't know." "Then why you are ticking?" "Because I don't know English." "Who told you to take?" "The safety department. They mentioned me to just take and fulfill the formality." So if you are ticking everything, that means everything is safe and the evidence is showing there is no problem with the forklift. And when I asked the forklift operator, "Can you show me your forklift?" The tires quality was terrible. Backup warnings were not working. Seat belt was not buckling up, you know, and a lot of other issues. What about users? Make sure the work equipment should be only used by the workers who are authorized, well informed, instructions are given, training is properly provided to them, and also make sure the protective devices, marking and warnings are there. At the end, it's all about competent. Make sure the person is competent, the user is competent, and training must be continued before even starting the job, like induction training, and also refresh regularly and updated as necessary. The work equipment hazards and control. This is important one. That's what we are going to discuss. Like hand tools, knives, cutting and stabbing of scalp is a hazard. What controls? Redesign process, and also make sure knives are sharp and well maintained. Use safe knives. So safe use, storage, suitable knife handles, and availability of left or right hand tools, regular inspection, cutting and stabbing of others, enough space around to cut and proper lighting. So restrict access to others. So you can just study hazard and some other controls. Same way, contact with rotating drill, what controls you require, entanglement around the rotating drill or noise and vibration, how you gonna, it's not like only the PPs, even drill properly maintained, low vibration, dust, you need some dust suppression techniques and electric shock or regulation, examination of the tool, alternative power, and also reduce voltage of battery power. Trapping fingers between rollers. These are some controls. Clothing hair becomes entangled. Some controls. Fatigue from the standing for long periods, or boredom is for carrying out repetitive tasks. So read carefully each control. Falling from height, falling off from ladder, what controls you require. I want you to take one hazard and start thinking what control must be there, rather than just falling blindly to NEBOSH theories. Or you can go back and check your risk assessment. What kind of controls are there against certain hazards or risks? Dropping materials by passers-by. On passers-by, use warning signs and barriers to stop. People walking underneath work area, secure tools, obstructions, carefully placed ladder. So this activity you can complete, like a window cleaner sustained a broken arm and ankle when he fell from 2.5 meters from a ladder. Please complete this exercise. Consider the part played by the window cleaner and the office, and what might have helped to prevent this incident. How are you gonna? So recap and see all controls and start finding the best solution and suggest and complete this activity. Yeah, anyhow, some feedback is given, like window cleaner and unexpected codes, put or secure the ladder, correct angle, office company, clean up the moss, or method statement must be there. That was all about element number 4, how we gonna find out what the hazards of work equipment and their control. Because these are your regular activities. So that's why I'm not going to put a lot of time here, but I want you guys to go back within your company and see how many types of work equipment are there, hand tools or power tools or heavy equipment, or so find out what hazards are existing still within your company and how you have to control it. Now, the number 5 is all about transport safety. Because we have internal transportation, we have external transportation, but again, the purpose is only to find out the hazards and also appropriate controls we need to implement. Now, what do we mean by transport safety? It's a self-propelled work equipment or vehicles we use at our work. Hazards in vehicle operation is a loss of control and overturning of vehicles. The relevant factors, wet and uneven ground could be there, excessive or sudden gradient slopes or excessive speed, incorrect high pressures, or maybe sudden changes in direction on inappropriate carrier or secure loads and attachment. Now, collision with other vehicles, that could also be a pedestrian and fixed objects, can occur both off and off the public roads. Even people can stuck by the vehicle, run over, or trapped against objects. Loads and materials can be dislodged and fall on the operator or pedestrians. What associated hazards? Still falling from the height, contact with moving machinery, objects falling into the operator, or vehicle body trapping the operator. Now, what control we required? Control measures in vehicle operation: safe side, safe driver, safe vehicle, safe operation. So SDVOs or 4S: safe side, safe driver, safe vehicle, safe operation. Safe side, that means risk assessment manage your vehicles, well-planned traffic rules, signages are there, avoid reversing, extra care at the crossing points, visitors are well aware, loading, unloading areas have some specific rules, environmental factors are well considered and segregated pedestrians and vehicles. Now, safe driver, make sure is well trained, competent as per in the UK and many other countries, formal system for the certification of operators of the certain vehicles like forklift trucks and managers must ensure the vehicles operators are carrying out pre-use checks, performing vehicle operations safely and correctly, obeying site rules, and fitness of the workers is also important and well assessed. Safe vehicle, yes, choose the right vehicle for the job, must be well maintained. The tires, brakes, mirror, as I told you, it's not like tick, tick, tick. Rollover protective structures like ropes must be there, restraint systems where necessary. And also the objects may fall from the vehicle while in use, prevent the need to climb the vehicle and where possible. Banksman, flashing beacons, reversing alarms where operator visibility is restricted. Now, what are the examples? Choose the right vehicle for the job. It is advisable to use a normal counterbalance forklift truck on the rough terrain, and also it is likely to overturn. Risk from the vehicle maintenance, yes, tipping vehicle bodies or tilting cabs should always be securely dropped when people are working under them. Objects from the vehicle, of course, they may fall. Forklift operator when moving, any sort of load from the top of some racking to the floor. So significant risk is there. So falling objects protection like F4PS should be provided. Falling object protection system must be provided. F4PS. Safe operation like activities including loading, unloading, stacking, lifting, traveling. So every activity, for a safe operation, make sure it's well considered and safe work system is there. Forklift truck operation can be particularly hazardous, so it's liable to like overturn, or maybe the truck is used with a load on the raised forks. A safe work system for forklift truck could include only use trained drivers, suitable vehicle, position the forks is good and attachment correctly, uneven and unstable ground is not there, hand brake and the lowering load or lifting is well being used, and driver forwards of the drive cannot see over the load, reverse down gradients with the load on the forks, drive carefully, slowly, especially on the wet ground. Forklift trucks on the gradient do not part or leave forklift trucks on the gradients. Do not leave the keys in the forklift truck when unattended, and also ensure through inspection and examination regular maintenance is carried. So these are some of the examples of safe work system. So consider how transport safety can be improved in your workplace. Just 3 improvements in your company has few traffic movements. Consider the car parking or traffic system at the site you're familiar with, your supermarket or college. So just complete this activity. You have plenty of information now. It's a game of practice and brainstorming. So start learning by practicing. Yes, activity feedback, a one-way traffic flow system around the works and appropriate speed limit. So these are some of the suggestions which are given by NEBOSH, like designate specific areas for off-road and also designate separate parking area, pedestrians, separation, and also road signs marking the light for the night operation, and also adequate lighting, high visibility garments, maintenance programs, and also appropriate training for the drivers. So that was all about element number 5. And let's talk about working with electricity, because electricity again is an important ingredient for any business. So let's see. Again, two words are there: hazards and their associated control. I know you are mostly familiar about the hazards related to electricity, and even you are mostly familiar how to control them. But still, let's understand what are some of the outcome, like identify the hazards and control measures. Now, what is electricity? Or is electric current the movement of the flow of electrons, and voltage is substantial difference, a measure of the movement of the current or around a circuit. What is the resistance? The ease with which electricity can pass through a material. Water can have the effect of reducing resistance. Conductor, a material with little resistance, which allow electricity to pass through it easily. Insulator, a material which does not allow electricity to pass through. That's why the insulator is an important, resource for safety against electricity. Now, live, when a circuit has current flow through, it is referred to as going live or hot. Dead, when the current is switched off or isolated from the circuit, is called dead. Static electricity is electricity charge generated by friction between two objects. In our childhood, we would just like doing this and creating heat, because friction creates heat. And also sometimes we rub a ball pen and picking certain small particles of dust, or so I hope you got the point. So whenever two objects are rubbing together or friction together, they create static electricity. Flow of electricity is a principle of electricity flow when can be seen from the flow of water and to insulation. Illustration is given, like tank of water is there. The inclusion here of a tap and can be same as the switch in the electric system, and container as well. Why electricity be dangerous? According to UKHSE, most gas injuries arise from use of badly maintained electrical equipment, particularly portable appliances, activities near overhead power lines, contact with underground cables, or even work on maintained electric supplies, use of unsuitable electrical equipment in wet or explosive areas. Electric shock from the contact with electricity, that's another, and also it can cause to pain, burns, and muscle constraints, and even convulsions and breathing difficulty. Electric shock from the contact with electricity, yes, severity of the shock will depend on what the size of the current passing through the body and the duration, and of course the path of the electric current through the body. Contact with mains voltage can easily be fatal, particularly if conditions are wet. Now, what are the electrical burns? Due to heating effects caused by passage of electric current through body, so electric burns could happen. Fire and explosion, accordingly, due to overheating of overload damage, poorly maintained or short circuit electrical equipment. Short circuit causes sparks, and also very low voltage electric sparks can also have energy to ignite these flammable substances. Now, secondary hazards and risks may arise from an individual receiving an electric shock. Example of physical injury from falling, particularly from height. Risk associated with portable electrical equipment, just remember, devices that have a cable and plug can easily be moved from place to place. Nearly a quarter of all electrical accidents in more portable equipment can become easily damaged, particularly the cable and the plug. May also be subjected to more vulnerable to wear or harsh treatment. Electrical conductor could become exposed, which may start electrical fires. So just you have to be very much careful with portable electrical equipment. Risk from charge storage equipment, hazards like explosion, electrocution, or maybe hazardous chemicals containing in batteries, hydrogen and oxygen are usually produced. And common injuries could be electric shocks, burns, wounds, and burns from hot metal objects. What are the precautions for charge storage equipment? Wear gloves, apron suitable boots, metal objects. Ensure no metal objects can fall onto the battery. Keep away from sources of ignition. Use suitable tools with insulated handles. Fit temporary plastic covers over terminals. Charge in a dedicated, well-ventilated area. Use insulated lifting equipment. Wash hands thoroughly afterward. What are the control measures? Never work on the near exposed live parts unless absolutely necessary. Working involving electricity should only be carried out by trained and competent people. So make sure that trained people, the authorized one, switching of the system, isolate before you, otherwise better to remove fuses, lock the isolator or switch with a padlock or place a warning notice on the system before starting work. Always check all sources of electricity supply have been isolated. Don't assume. So don't work on assumptions. You have to double check that no electricity is passing through and the system is fully isolated or the lockout diagram is well implemented. Selection and suitability of the equipment. Equipment should be suitably designed, constructed, and installed, suitable for the environment in which it is being used, like wet conditions, resistance to mechanical damage, and there should be easily accessible, identifiable switch near each fixed machine to cut off power in an emergency. So it's very much important the selection and suitability of the equipment as well. We need protective measures like fuses designed to intentionally break the electric circuit, like a radio needing only 4 ampere will be protected by 5 ampere fuse, and this will burn out at a current higher than 5 amperes and protect the radio. Earthing provide a path for electricity to safe move from any damaged appliance back to earth, needs to be strong enough to safely discharge electrical energy to earth. Isolation, physically separating equipment from the source supply. So you need to lock, you need to isolate the electric energy before you start your project, before you start your activity, especially on the electric panels or especially in the confined space or even on the machinery for maintenance or maybe for shutdown or maybe for startup of any plant. Reduce low voltage system. Voltage supply to electric equipment should at the lowest level. Voltage should be low enough so that it won't cause serious injury to the user in a fault condition. Example, 110 portable tools are commonly used on many construction sites. The transformer that supplies that tool is a center tap to earth, which limits any shock voltage to 55 volt. These can still be dangerous though, particularly in one condition. It is better in these cases to use battery operated tools. Now, residual current devices, RCD, we can use acts as a safety trip device when there is a fault. Double insulation we can use, provide protection between the worker and the live conductors. Live conductors are covered by 2 separate layers of insulation. So make sure your electrical engineers, your electricians, your technicians, they are well aware of all these technical methodologies, or I would say the safety requirements or precautions. Most often used in portable equipment, identified by the double square symbol. Inspection and maintenance strategies must be quite clear, especially about the electrical systems. As per UKHSE, what they recommend, checks, it must be checked by the user, formal visual inspection and also combined inspection by an electrically competent person. User check, yes, the plug is safe and not damaged. The user should also be capable or responsible to check the plug is safe and not damaged. There are no burn marks around the pins and they are not bent. The cable is clamped into the plug and the cable in itself is intact, and also the body of the item is not damaged. The cable into the equipment is clamped and secured. Formal installation and test should be carried by competent person. Make sure the security of connections and the clamp and condition security of the fuses well checked, and also cover should be taken off to look for signs of deterioration, damage inside the equipment, and especially the PAT, like portable appliance test, can detect faults which cannot always be detected by visual inspection. So portable appliance test can also detect different faults. So please do this activity. Which points would you look for a visual inspection of a portable electrical appliance? So it's already written there, but I want you to go back and check with your electrical engineers or electricians, how they do this inspection. Can be, checks by the user or formal visual inspection. Just remember, inspection should always be taken by a competent person. Yes, begin by, so what is the activity feedback? Begin by switching off and unplugging the equipment. Number 1, check that the plug is correctly wired, it's not damaged, the pins, are not burned, ensure the fuse is correctly rated, electrical cable is not damaged, check that the outer sheath of the cable is effectively secured, and also The outer cover of the equipment is not damaged, and check the cable terminals, secure and cracked. Check the burn marks and staining. So these are some of the checks you. So, but most importantly, in different companies, whenever we sign a contract to develop and establish their health and safety system, we, let me be more straightforward. We develop a checklist for everything, almost for everything, like checklist for electrical items, checklist for ACs, checklist for machines, checklist for tools, checklist for. So we try to create inspection checklist almost for everything, including compressors and. No, frequency of inspection. Frequency, even though, will be depend on the type of equipment and how it is often used and but environment in which it is operated. But record of inspection should be kept and can be used for area where higher than average faults are occurred in them. Underground power cables. In carrying on excavation work, always assume that the underground service cables will be present unless you can be sure they are not. That's why we use cable detector devices. We use drawings to make sure the underground cables are not ignored, because they are a huge, I would say, the terrible risk of injuries or fatal injuries. Consult service plans where possible. If in doubt, use a cable avoidance tools and safe digging practice. Avoid use of heavy excavators and power drills, and only dig carefully by hand near cables. Wear appropriate PPEs. Overhead power lines extremely dangerous, because live cables, unavoidable, but it may be possible to have switch off or power drives diverted. If not, keep a safe working distance from the cables, restrict the width of passageways, and also aware of the height of any load, and also working unit plant should be modified by physical restraints so that it cannot reach beyond the safe clearance limit. That was all about, relevant to electricity, but we discussed what? The hazards and their controls. Even though I know as a safety professional, you already have sufficient knowledge, but for this qualification for health and safety at work, of course, we need to discuss how to identify hazards and how to put some control measures. Now we are going to discuss about fire safety. So fire, we all know, is a triangle. It's like we need heat, fuel, and oxygen. And oxygen is already there. Fuel also mostly we have nearby. Only the missing element mostly is the heat. And if that heat is also there, of course, the fire triangle is completed. Because of chemical reaction, the fire will be broke out. So what we truly have to learn about this element, we must be capable to understand the common fire hazards and also the benefits of adequate fire risk assessment separately. We have general risk assessment, we have adequate fire risk assessment as well. Outline the basic principles of fire prevention and fire controls in the workplace. Now, common fire hazards in the workplace. What is fire? As I told you, it's a rapid process of combustion, or more technically, oxidation of a material causing heat, light, and other products of combustion to be released. Ignition source, oxygen, and fuel all have to meet together. Sources of ignition can be naked flames from boilers, smoking, sparks, static electricity, hot surfaces, welding, cutting, sparks. I know you all guys understand all these things, but still, no harm to refresh your vocabulary. The sparks from electric equipment, hot surfaces from heaters, poorly maintained equipment, hot surfaces from overheating electrical equipment, etc. Flammable liquid, dust from wood, coil, grain, foodstuff, gases like hydrogen, which may be generated as part of a work process, such as battery charging. Now, what is sources of oxygen? The air around us, ventilation systems, stored oxygen like in cylinders. Stored materials could be oxidizing substance such as hydrogen, peroxide, and also sodium hypochlorite. That means bleach. To complete this activity, think about your workplace, how many possible sources of ignition, fuel, and oxygen can be identified. So go back and find out what are the sources of ignition, fuel, and oxygen are present, or you can easily identify at your workplace. Yes, we have to understand fire classification. Fires are normally classified by their fuel source, but anyhow, the fire classification for the UK follows below: A, B, C, D, F. So UK fire classification. Okay, we have fire type A. It is relevant to solid like wood and paper. B is all about flammable liquids. C is flammable gases or propane and methane, etc. And D is all about metals, magnesium, aluminum, and also F is cooking, fat and oil and large catering establishments. How it is extinguished? We can for fire for fire type A, we can use water, wet chemical, foam, spray, or even ABC powder. So ABC powder is more, I would say, multi-purpose. And for type B fire, which is relevant to flammable liquid, we can use carbon dioxide, foam spray, and ABC powder. And for type C, the much better idea is turn off the gas supply. Otherwise, gas fire should not be extinguished. This may leave unburned gases as an explosion risk. And D, fire involving such as metal and special extinguishing media are required depending upon the metal involved, and also fire involving cooking fat. So we can use wet chemical. So I hope this slide will help you to understand as per UK fire classification A to F and what are the characteristics and how you have to extinguish the fire. If you are studying outside of the UK, try to find out what fire classification apply in your own country and relate these resources of fuel within your workplace. So it's an activity you can complete it. Fire speed. You know, fire speed is all depends on the heat and dangerous combustion products contained in smoke can spread in a number of ways. It can spread through convection, conduction, radiation, and direct burn. So see, what is convection? What is convection? You know, the picture is more louder than words. See, hot air arises. Conduction, heat suppressed along conductor. And radiation, surrounding, you know, it transfer of heat from an object to its surrounding in the form of electromagnetic waves like heat from the sun. No medium, solid, liquid, or gas is needed. Direct burning, metals catching fire from the direct contact with the other material. Now, fires in building and outdoors. Structure of building can trap, encourage fire, smoke, and heat. Trapped by the roof and ceiling. Outdoor fires can be intensified and spread quickly by dry vegetation, the presence of other combustibles, and strong winds. The common causes and consequences of fire in the workplace. The main cause is deliberate ignition, like arson, after involving pattern occurring at high night, certain buildings, more prone, private garages and sheds, construction industry premises, recreational and other culture service premises and schools. Accidental fires caused by faulty appliances, leaks, misuse of equipment, or appliances, smokers, materials, cooking oil, fires, horseplay, etc. What are the consequences of fire? Death and injury, of course, it can destroy everything. And other consequences may be structural damage, equipment stock damage, delay and loss of business, damage from firefighting, environmental damage, and overall structure can also be collapsing. So what is the benefit of this fire risk assessment? We need adequate fire risk assessment. The responsible person, the competent one, should arrange for a risk assessment to be conducted by a competent person. Aims of fire risk assessment is to identify the fire hazards proactively in advance. It's not like waiting for the fire incidents and then you'll wake up. So better to be wake up in advance, be proactive, So have adequate fire risk assessment. Even though 100% safety, fire safety still would be a question, but at least we can minimize the chances, we can minimize the fire risk or hazard to decide where what physical fire precautions and arrangements we require to need ensure the safety of people in your premises if a fire does start. How we gonna elements of a fire risk assessment? We need to understand how to identify hazards, sources of ignition, fuel, and oxygen, decide who might be harmed, a risk both in and around the premises, evaluate, remove, reduce, and protect from risk, record the significant finding, plan, inform, instruct, and train, review the assessment as when necessary. So these are constructive steps, for a fire risk assessment. Now, fire prevention and control, wherever possible, remove the fire hazards, because prevention is better than cure. If it is not possible, reduce any risk as much as you can. Establish fire safety measures to protect people if fire starts. What other control of ignition sources? Substituting open fires or gas burners with safer alternatives. Correct selection and maintenance of equipment. Controls on hard work, welding, restrictions on smoke. Control of fuel sources. The levels of flammable material kept to a minimum. Extra care should be given to materials that give out particular toxic smoke. Store flammable material safely. Control of sources of oxygen. Store additional like oxygen safely, cylinders of oxygen. Make sure there is no leaking, no damage, and don't store near to the ignition. So safe system of work also be required, because we need especially the rules for hot work rules, especially like welding. And if we are doing spray painting or removing petrol from a car as part of the maintenance, safe system work should be followed, which may be include work permit system as well. Now, emptying petrol from the tank of a motor vehicle is an example of a job with a particular high fire risk. Petrol is a highly flammable liquid. So what we're going to do? What steps should you take to do job in a safe way? So good housekeeping, keep corridor, passageway, aisles, walkways clear, ensure all flammable and materials are properly handled, ensure bins are regularly emptied, and also protect full or particular full skips wherever possible. Fire detection, fire warning, and firefighting equipment. The fire warning system must warn all people in the building in all circumstances. Alarm, sounders, and manually operated call points on the route of escape are likely to be adequate if it is likely that someone will notice the fire quickly. If the likelihood of a fire being discovered is less, then automatic fire detection may be necessary. These should be located appropriately. Portable firefighting equipment, extinguishers, hoses we require by blanket, and also make sure for relatively small fires should only be operated by the people who are trained and when it is safe to do so. Fire extinguishers should be sited in the suitable locations. So they must be visible and easily accessible. Don't block the area where you have placed fire extinguishers. The fire exit routes, make sure they are not blocked, they are not obstructed, and signs must be posted regularly. They need to be maintained. Yes, we can use extinguishing media, that is water, carbon dioxide, powder, foam, and wet chemical. And means of escape, we need proper, make sure the escape routes are capable of taking number of people who will need to use it, kept clear all times, as should as possible, eliminated by emergency lighting and use of sign tools. So all these things already implemented within your company, mashallah. But just see and look back and make sure they are well maintained. And yes, there should be a provision for one escape route being blocked. The organization should display notices which give instructions on how to use fire safety equipment. Should be protected, compartmentalized by fire door, which should always open in the direction of the travel. So make sure you are designing all these things as per OSHA requirements or as per some other NFPA. So that's why I mentioned safety starts from design. Emergency evacuation procedures, make sure it's well implemented. Role of fire marshals, supervise fire evacuation. We can say them like, take charge of emergency until emergency services arrive, take a roll call, should be properly trained, and can have a role in fixed risk assessment and inspection. You must need to understand what are the responsibilities of the role of fire marshals. Fire training and drills must be there, because practice makes a man perfect. So make sure there are some drills, evacuation drills, or fire or emergency response drills, or firefighting, some drills. And shared premises, also you can involve nearby your occupants or where the common parts of the shared building, and the reasonable person should be properly defined. Premises may also share a common system for alarm detection. All parties should cooperate with each other and share information of fire issues. Presence of flammable, coordinating fire drills, building work might obstruct fire exits. So please complete this activity, like consider a fire drill that has taken place at your workplace. Go back and check, when the last fire drill was happened, or you conducted fire drill or fire evacuation drill at your premises, and look what kind of records were made. Either it was successful or unsuccessful. How effective was it, and could any improvements be made? For example, how quick was the evacuation? Did the fire marshals and the other people know what to do? And did people use the emergency exits? Because practice makes a man perfect. Sometimes you have evacuation drill, you have everything, you have fire exit doors even, but people are not familiar how to use them, or they're not practicing. Did people use the emergency exit? Was the exits unobstructed? So that was all about fire. We discussed about fire hazards and adequate fire risk assessment, and also basic principles of fire prevention and fire control. Let's talk about element 8 is all about manual handling and repetitive movement. Manual handling. The tasks we perform with our hands, by bending, by lifting. So again, we have to be capable to identify the hazards related to manual handling or repetitive physical activities, identify ways of controlling risk for manual handling and ergonomic risk. So before we study NEBOSH theory, so why don't you think what kind of manual activities are going on within your premises or at your project site, and how hazardous they are, and on the other side, what control you have implemented, or you can put some control accordingly. But anyhow, hazards from manual handling is all about, first of all, to understand what is manual handling, the transporting, lifting, carrying, pushing or pulling, or supporting of a load by hand or bodily force. Musculoskeletal, these injuries, any injury, damage or disorder of the joints other than the tissues of the upper and lower limbs or the back. Ergonomics, the science of assessing the relation between the workers and their work environment. And display screen equipment, DSE, any equipment which uses an electronic display screen such as a computer. Now the scope of manual handling and repetitive physical activity, back pain is more common. So you can go back and check your first aid record and see how many people for the last 3 months have reported back pain, and in which process and in which department, and what exact activity they were performing, and how much weight they were lifting. Like for male, either they are lifting above than 25 kg, or the female above than 16 kg they are lifting. If that is the case, of course, more back pain issues will be there. And how they are lifting, what is their lifting technique, either is safe or no. Factors related to repetitive tasks could be driving or sitting for a long period, stooping, bending, crouching, twisting, stretching, or excessive physical exertion. Now, work-related upper limb disorder, that's been ruled. Okay, so affect the arm, wrist, hands, and shoulders, commonly associated with keyboard use or component assembly work. So suited with awkward, repetitive movements, particularly if they are involve excessive workforce. Symptoms include numbness, aches, tingling, cramps, and muscle weakness. And most people will recover if the problem is spotted early. You can complete this activity. Consider how you other people work when using a computer screen. What musculoskeletal injuries might arise? What are the risk factors? So these are some of the examples, like screen glare, poor image quality, poor lighting. These are the risk factors. Reading the screen for long period without a break, poor postures, or poor unadjusted sitting, or overreaching, using excessive force on the keyboard and not enough leg room, or using the mouse excessively. No assembly of small components, or packing and unpacking, or bricklaying. And all these manual activities, what can go wrong? How the muscle inflammation, or maybe this gripping and fingers twisting of the wrist could also happen. And maybe the production lines sometimes involve like movement, like turning, reaching, and stretching. Bricklaying, there's another way, like for musculoskeletal injuries are particular to the low back. Checkout activities, these require a quick succession of movement, handling objects or various weights of sizes. While so what you're gonna do is for all manual activities, just identify them, identify the hazards, and see how you can improve them, and how you can put some administrative controls or have some engineering solutions. So what are the factors? How we can avoid, factors affecting the risk of injury? Okay, guys. So factors affecting the risk of injury. The way to control the risk of injury is to adopt a similar approach to dealing with other risks. So what we have to remember is AAR. That means avoid, assess, and reduce. Either the best strategy is to avoid. Otherwise, start assessing and see the level of risk, and accordingly you can put some reduction controls, and how you're going to reduce it, because at the end you need to reduce some factors which are affecting you. Now, what is risk assessment of manual handling activities? How you're going to do it? Remember the task, load, individual work in a work environment. So task, load, individual work in a work environment. So TLIW. So you need to remember this significant risk factors in task, load, individual work environment. Factors for repetitive actions can be grouped as like tasks, specifically the repetition, working postures, and duration of the exposure, force, individual work and work environment. You can complete this activity. What are the risk factors associated with the task, the load, and the individual and the work environment? Already given there, but make sure you try to complete it by yourself. Now, the activity feedback task is repetition, working posture, and duration of activity. Load could be dimensions, weight, center of gravity, surface. And if individual worker is there, of course, the limitations is exceptional, strength required, and work environment is all about lighting, obstacles, uneven ground. So consider a repetitive task which you or other people carry out at the work site. What are the risk factors associated with the task, the force, and the individual and the environment? So start studying, any task manually being handled by any of your employees, even by yourself. Anyhow, the feedback is there, like repetitive work. What are the control measures required? HSC describe the ergonomic approach, such as fitting the job to the person rather than the person to the job. It's not like, you are fitting the job to the person. Make sure the person is fit to the job. This approach works best if the workers themselves actively participate. So very often solutions needed to control risk can be very easy, cheap, and straightforward. The point is either we are sitting together and having brainstorming and making sure the right set of solutions are implemented. Now, how are we gonna? What are the means of avoiding and minimizing the risk from manual handling? So let's take an example of tasks. So provide handling aids, reduce the amount of time spent, group lifting technique, or improve the work layout. Avoid pulling your activities, move load correctly, ensure when team lifting that everyone knows where the load is to be carried out and lifted to. And if it is a load, what best strategy you can implement? Reduce the weight that has to be lifted. Like for men below 25 kg and for female below 16 kg, that would be the ideal option. Make sure the load is not unstable and try and separate the weight evenly across the load. Clearly mark the weight of the load outside of the packaging so they can easily familiar with that. Remove or avoid any sharp edges. Even the shape of the load, how the shape of the load is there, accordingly you need to also plan your lifting technique. So the working environment, avoid lifting or stairs and the changes of level, avoid slips, trips, and hazard, and avoid moving objects in cramped and awkward spaces. Provide proper lighting, avoid extremes of temperature, ensure all clothing and PPE is suitable, not restricted. Individual, make sure the individual's suitability for the job. Do they have pre-existing health conditions? Take extra care with young people, people with disabilities, and also pregnant women. Manual handling training should cover manual handling risk factors, how injuries could occur, how to carry out safe manual handling. So training. But I would say this manual handling techniques must be examined, must be showed off practically also. Use of appropriate mechanic or show some videos there. Even I would suggest go to YouTube and see what are the best manual handling techniques for different kind of materials or different kind of loads. Practical work should supplement the theoretical training, of course. The means of avoiding or minimizing the risk from the repetitive activity. What we can do: task, the repetition, adopt work routine, allow workers to set their own pace, working exposure, design working practice to avoid static or awkward postures, duration, take a regular short break, job rotation, etc. Force can be repeated, adopt work routine, use of power tools, allow workers to set their own pace, working posture, again, design working practice to avoid static or awkward posture, consider individual needs. So design tasks so that a variation in working posture is possible. Yes, duration, take regular short rest periods and job rotation. So put some administrative controls, against all four. The worker, of course, the greater degree of control the worker has, the better. Manage work pressure and look for signs and workers are not coping. Encourage them, team working and environment. Yes, make sure the environment is good, lighting is good, temperature is good, and they can do their job in a comfortable environment. Now, you need to complete this activity. Consider again how you or other people work when using a computer screen. What control measure do you think are needed? Yes, make sure adjustable seating is there, footrest, eyesight test, adjustable screen height, document holders, and need to stop glare, regular changes of activity, avoid using mouse too frequently, clear space around workstation and clear desk policy and position in front of screen, even sufficient leg room and keyboard technique, no flicker on screen, upright and comfortable posture. So you can create a checklist also and see how your office is designed or your workstation is designed. That was all about manual handling hazards, how to identify and what are the best risk controlling risk methodologies, and how we're going to handle the ergonomic. The number 9 element is all about the hazardous substances. That means the dangerous substances. Outcome is again, we need to learn about how to identify the forms of classification and the routes of entry for hazardous substances, how they go inside our body, how they So outline the source of information to be considered when they're undertaking an assessment of the risk for substances commonly encountered in the workplace, and identify the controls that should be used to reduce the risk of ill health for exposure to hazardous substances. Let's start. The forms and classification of hazardous substances. What are the hazardous substances? So any substances which any need could be exposed to while you're working, which could cause harm to your or their health. It can be solid, like wood, hardwood, silica. It can be fumes. Okay. It can be gases as well. Like fumes could be coming from heating or vaporizing from metal or solid chemicals, or on the other side, it can be in form of gases like H2, hydrogen sulfide. Now, forms of hazardous substances, heating lead to that it gives off lead to vapors and generally more dangerous. Because that is why sometimes I say if a painter is doing spray painting and nearby a welder is doing welding, and both scientists, they're not familiar what is going in the air and how catastrophic, and if the project belongs to the confined space, how terrible it could be. The same case, if fumes are there, especially from welding, coming from welding, and maybe its degree of harm will depend on the type of metal, no doubt, and the concentration. The welding of stainless steel, for instance, has been linked to lung cancer. Gases like carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless, and tasteless gas. So incomplete, so it's not like carbon monoxide, even so many other gases. Mist and vapors can also be there, or vapor substances which is close to its boiling point. A mist is similar to the vapor but contains very small liquid droplets suspended in the vapor. So liquids is a physical state of substance at temperatures between the melting point and the boiling point. The molecules are close together, but they are able to move freely past each other. So the liquid can flow. That is why sometime while mixing the paint with thinner retardant paint, and they have no idea what is going in the air and start smoking. And if the room is closed with poor ventilation, they'll not get a second chance for sure to escape, right? Fibers, it's a fiber is slender and elongated, solid, and can be spun into the thread. And those used to make textiles like cotton. Different types of asbestos are also fibers, rather than, and they can lodge deep in the lungs and can cause effects such as asbestosis and even cancer. Types of hazardous substances can be chemicals, inert dust, or biological like bacteria, virus, and fungi, or physically irritants, but not chemically harmful. Inert dust is also. Now, how and rude? Inhalation is the first one. That means the substance breathed in through the nose and mouth. Ingestion. That means the solid substance taken in through the mouth and swallowed. Accidental ingestion during eating or smoking. Absorption. Many substances can be absorbed through both intact and damaged skin, and particularly through the eyes and mucosal membrane. That is why pesticides and organic solvents such as petrol. Injection. So we have inhalation, ingestion, absorption, and injection. Like hypodermic needles disposed of carelessly. That's another biological. No, the main classification of hazardous substances. A system classification has been developed for materials, and even it allow and determine the precautions. And also pictorial symbols are well labeled on the packaging, and even the safety data sheets are issued, and the system operates across Europe as well. This is the classification pictogram. Like symbol is there. If you see this symbol, that relevant to heating, may cause and explain. If you see this symbol, that means heating may cause a fire. May intensify fire oxidizer, causes serious eye damage. You see this one, toxic to aquatic life, or even reflects serious longer term health hazards. So I hope it will help you to understand what kind of pictograms or kind of symbols we use against certain kind of examples of hazards. Sources of information, product label will help us. Don't buy any chemical without label, without SDS. Safety data sheet containing, should be like 15 or 16, but at least 16, 15, as per NEBOSH theory. But anyhow, identification of substance must be there. Hazard identification, composition information and ingredients, first aid measures, firefighting measures, accidental release measures, handling and storage, exposure control, personal protection, physical and chemical properties, stability and reactivity, toxicological information, ecological information, disposal considerations, transport information, regulatory information must be. So this safety strategy against every chemical must be with us. How we can control elimination, replacing the hazardous by less with non-hazardous. Like if we are using a paint, a solvent paint, which is highly flammable or extremely flammable, we can use water based. We can limit some exposure. We can put some total or partial exposure. It may be possible to enclose the process so that the hazardous substance does not escape. Engineering control can also be like through ventilation extraction system. We can use emission should be extracted near the sources. Like extract fan is there, main duct is there, air filter, dust collection bag, and discharge to atmosphere. General ventilation would also be helpful, especially in large painted pieces. Safe storage, safe work system we require, like training, information supervision, good personal hygiene, regular cleaning of floor, walls, and surface, PPs. information, instruction, training, and supervision, monitoring, and health surveillance. So also that means that occupational exposure limits are used in most countries to regulate the levels to which workers can be exposed to hazardous substances, and health surveillance should be carried out where monitoring indicates that a defined health condition could occur, like lung function or even test or skin inspection. These should be carried out by the competent health practitioner. Activity you need to complete, like woodworking can raise large amount of dust, which can lead to asthma and cancer. Think about how exposure to wood dust could be reduced. Group your suggestions under the following heading, like elimination, substitution, engine control, safe system work, hygiene support, training, and personal protective equipment. So that was all about element number 9, hazardous substances. We discussed about the classification, and also the forms we identified, different forms of hazardous substances. Also, we outlined the sources of information and what kind of health risk or substances commonly encountered, and also the control we discussed against hazardous substances. Now, the last element of this qualification is all about the working environment, which is, of course, another important one. Now, guys, this last element, the working environment, this all elements, I would say, would also be supporting you in your unit 2, like completing your risk assessment project at your site, because all the hazards are there, and also plenty of examples of controls. Otherwise, you can go back and see how the risk assessment is carried out within your organization of every activity or every process, and what control measures they have implemented to bring that risk at acceptable level. Now, the outcome of this element, the working environment, is all about the identify the common welfare and work environment requirements, hazards and controls in the workplace, hazards related to pedestrians in the workplace and appropriate control measures, common psychosocial hazards, and health effects associated with exposure to noise, vibration, and appropriate control measures. And also, we need to identify the requirements of effective provision of first aid in the workplace. So I repeat again, the common welfare and work environment requirements, hazards and controls in the workplace we're going to discuss, hazards related to pedestrians and the control measures, psychosocial hazards and control measures, and also hazards related to noise and vibration and their controls, and related to first aid requirements and the better implementation of the first aid methodologies. Now, welfare and work environmental issues. Welfare, general related facilities needed to ensure the general welfare of staff, including like toilets, washing facilities, drinking water. Working environment basically is a term that applies to the general condition that might include what? Ventilation, temperature, lighting, cleanliness, working space, etc. Drinking water, clean, potable drinking water must be there. Washing facilities, like running hot and warm water. Okay, and the arms can be washed, showers may be needed. If dirty as is, you are trying to control potential contamination risk. Sanitary convenience, sufficient number of clean and well-ventilated sanitary conveniences are required. You would normally expect about 25 two toilets per 25 people with facilities available for both sexes. If you only employ men, the numbers can be reduced to about 2 per 45 workers by fitting the room. Accommodation for clothing, rest, and eating facilities must be there. Sitting arrangements like work instructions must be comfortable. Ventilation should be properly done. Fresh air, clean air, heating is important that a work is comfortable temperature. Lighting, adequate lighting must be there because it's also have psychological health benefit. Exposure to extremes of temperature, like excessive cold, can lead to frosty bite or hypothermia or thermia, and even increased risk of developing health problems when exposed to vibration. So excessive heat or exposure to the sun can lead to sunburn, burns, dehydration, and heat stress. So exposure to extremes of temperature can ultimately lead to death even. We have to, so this should be included in the health and safety of the workers also. Control measures for heat, if working internally, consider fans, ventilation, air conditioning. We all know, mashallah. If the work is strenuous or consider regular breaks to include drinks. If working externally, allow the acclimatization or ensuring that the exposed skin is covered, sunblock, shade, and regular rest during breaks. Some countries, for example, in the Middle East, have set their health and safety law maximum temperature above which work will be stopped. Control measures for cold, like PPEs, gloves, and warm insulating cloths. Adequate local and general heating. Providing warm workstations, cold environment like chillers. Regular rest breaks and warmer environment, and easy means of escape from closed environments of freezers. Smoking, yes, its effects. It's linked to the cancers, cardiovascular diseases, and also respiratory diseases, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. In many countries, including UK, smoking has been banned by law, and in closed public places, including internal workplaces and vehicles used for work used by more than one person, smoking materials also present an obvious fire on the hazardous mentioned ignition source. The control measures: employees should inform workers, employers should enforce the ban and remove any internal smoking zones. Employers should consider erecting a smoking shelter, and some employees have provided support for those who want to give up smoking. Now, for hazards and control for pedestrians, slip, slip, and fall on the same level. HSC UK, you know what they're estimating? 50% of all trip hazards are due to obstacles and bad housekeeping. Most slips are due to wet conditions. To other causes, poor lighting, poor flooring, sudden changes of levels, contamination and inadequate cleaning, footwear, ice, snow workers distracted me and obscure. So you need to complete this activity. What slips, slip, and fall hazards at your workplace, and try to group the hazards like contamination, poor cleaning, obstacles, flooring, environment, people, and even footwear. Falls from height. Working at height means any place where a person could be in falling from it. It can be scaffolding, it can be like working through ladder, even man lift, or workers need to be careful not to tread on the fragile material where they might fall through. Work at height also occurs in general workplace, for example, on mezzanine floors or at high level openings, or even near open cellar doors. Striking by moving, flying, falling objects, especially on the construction site. Flying objects, even from ejected materials, or maybe falling objects from the falling or drop from a height. Playing with fixed or stationary objectives, people often clear with structures when working in a workplace, particularly in VM, may be impaired or poor light. What control measures be required for pedestrian? Avoid flooring that is slippery or overly polished, or specify slip resistant surfaces. So anti-slippery shoes should also be used, by the way, where necessary, and look for signs of damage. Suitable footwear should be provided. Ensure there is sufficient lighting and good housekeeping. Ensure no spills, no contamination, and also cleaned up properly if there is. Put up signs warning of spills. Cleaning regimes, should be adequate for the type of injury. Make sure that the machines which might spill out and other contaminants onto floors are well maintained. Effective draining systems will ensure that liquids are not allowed to pool, introducing absorbent anti-slip. Matting systems can be effective, but they must not create a big hazard. Try to avoid sudden change of levels. Fall from a height, avoid working at a height, take steps to prevent fall, try and reduce. These are common, safety precautions, but make sure the relevant guys, whoever is working at height, they understand them well and also being followed. Use nets and airbags where appropriate. Ensure adequate handrails are provided and staircases. This is just an example. The best control measures for the high level openings to the guard the opening with suitable barriers the worker can raise without the hand to pull that. There are also specifically designed up and over barriers which always present a guarded edge to the worker. These barriers allow access to the upper floor. So this example will definitely give you some, protective pedestrians from moving objects. So how are you gonna improve? Segregate vehicles, designated walkways, curbs and barriers, fencing, environmental conditions, PPs, and also information instructions, supervision, and training. Maintenance of a safe workplace, regular inspections, make sure housekeeping is there. Doors to be fitted with transparent panels and areas should be well lit. Noise should be controlled. Dust levels should be monitored as well. Psychosocial issues, yes, it can be work-related violence, work-related stress, and substance misuse. Persons definitely will be affected. So how are you going to deal them, especially with the public? Work-related violence has mental as well as physical effects. What is the best control measures? There must be a system of work to deal with potentially violent clients and situations like lone working, logging appointments, joint visits, identification of potentially violent clients, refusal of visits. In some situations, not working with cash, a system to contact workers who work away from the central base. Effective training will also be helping. Extreme circumstances where should be taught control and discipline techniques. Physical and environmental control must be there, like panic system, coded locks, video surveillance, barriers, wide counters. Threats of violence should be recorded. Staff should be given support to deal with the effects of. So employers should make sure perpetrators are dealt with strict measures. So make sure the work-related stress is also, you understand the symptoms like mild to moderate anxiety or depression. According to HSC UK, the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressures or other types of demand placed on them at work. The perception of stress will depend on individual factors. The control measures, yes, we need better control measures, with some standards and to manage stress at the workplace, like demands placed on workers who are offered support, the amount of control individuals are allowed in their work, workers' understanding of what their role is, and the way that changes manage relationship in the working environment. Substance misuse, some signs are there like mood swing, aggression, withdrawal, and also impaired judgment, poor timekeeping, missed deadlines, poor production, increasing number of short-term absences, aggression, withdrawal, obvious signs of effect, and also drug profiting. What are the control measures? Employees should look at sickness, absence to record or conduct a survey to determine if it is a problem, develop a clear alcohol or substance misuse policy, encourage workers to talk confidentiality about any problems they have, consider the risks to individuals and others. So here the HR or the legal department of the company is very much important to play a vital role. Now, what health effects are there about noise and vibration? Because exposure to high levels can lead to noise-induced hearing loss. Okay, NIHL, noise-induced hearing loss. Workers should not be exposed to continuous noise more than 80 decibel without a noise assessment and suitable precautions. The quite of is like to reach about 40 decibel and operating in a chain, so about 10 decibel. Control techniques, employees should eliminate noise or reduce it as low as reasonably practicable. Choose work environment with emit least noise or redesign. It's a game of redesigning. Or if you don't want to redesign, then make sure it is designed at the first place. Now look at the design and layout of the workplace and fit noise exposure to provide noise-free areas. Fit engineering controls to reduce noise, silencers, and ensure all machines and equipment are properly maintained, clean, and lubricated. Now, personal hearing protection, you need to make sure the ear muff or ear plug are well provided. Now, the effects of the body of exposure to vibration, of course, the hand on vibration, like, HABS, hand-arm vibration syndrome, where the blood supply, nerves, and other structural damage. Also, vibration white finger, where the fingers appear blanched. Whole body vibration, which particularly affects drivers of road drivers. What is the control technique? Employees should eliminate the hazard, and it's not possible to reduce the risk. Workstation should be properly designed, especially for the jigs, especially use of jigs, which allow workers to arm to be comfortable and not grip to the tool too tightly. Tool should be working effectively, properly maintained, and have sufficient power to carry out the task effectively. Now, whole body vibration control techniques still going on. Employees should choose vehicle design for the challenge. So safety starts from design. If you don't want to follow all these things, tell your manufacturer to make sure it is already inbuilt. PPs must be there. Health surveillance, we require to make sure the early signs of disease are well identified. Yes, we need first aid. The role of first aid is all about to provide some treatment, like a first doctor, minimizing causing causes of injury and ill health until help from a competent person is obtained. Types of first aid training: an appointed person take charge of first aid arrangements. A person trained in emergency first aid at work, EFAW. Emergency first aid at work can give emergency aid to someone who is injured or becomes ill at work. A fully trained first aider is equipped to work to apply first aid to range of specific injuries and illness. Training should be provided by an appropriate organization, and refresh training is required. First aid equipment must be available, like like suitably stocked first aid box, an appointed person, information for workers. First aid arrangements, workplace may also need a specific first aid room. The factors affecting provision of first aid: degree of risk, the type of substances and materials the workers use, the processes, the workflows, and even the organization with 25 or less, one appointed person, 25 to at least one emergency person should present, and 50 or above fully trained first aid for every 100 workers. For employees, should inform staff of arrangement or even to induction, training, first aid notices. So guys, that was all about, but make sure you are the first doctor, but not the final one. So you must be capable at least to help at a first phase. But if someone requires CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, you need special training as a first aider. Maybe 1 day, maybe 2 days, and then you must be third-party certified to help that guy, and make sure you understand the whole process, like how to give CPR, how to use AED, or how to tackle or handle different kind of injuries. So that was the last element of this training, and I hope it will be giving you a lot of benefit to understand. And I tried my level best to maximum save some time for all of you, but still this training required a lot of time. You guys need to spend in practicing and solving different activities, and I'm sure inshallah it will be benefiting to all of you. Please subscribe our channel and refer to your colleagues, your friend, your network, and let's try to help our global community, because it's not like safety is not like only for the safety professionals. It belongs to everybody in the world. It belongs to every gender in the world. It belongs to every person at every sort of age level, they're working, or wherever they're working. Safety belongs to every individual. So make sure, let's try to help, because everyone can't pay a lot of amount for all these trainings, right? So please let them learn. Let's support. If you believe you are quite capable, competent, and you don't need to spend more time here, at least refer this channel to someone else. Best International Training Zone. And my name is Ishtiaq Rana. If you need further assistance or any help or support or any sort of other training, so please just feel free to contact us. And you can note down my WhatsApp number 00966 59 So after that, the second unit is all about risk assessment project. So if you need that risk assessment format, just feel free to WhatsApp me. So I'll be helping you accordingly, inshallah. I hope this training will be giving you a better insights how you can achieve this NEBOSH HSW qualification, inshallah. Thank you very much. Bye bye.